Welcome to the Boomer Briefing Podcast, where we help you solve a critical business issue in 20 minutes or less. I'm your host, Jon Hubbard, shareholder and consultant here at Boomer Consulting. And with me today is Jim Boomer. Jim, thank you for being on this episode of the podcast.
You bet. Great to be here, John.
Jim is our CEO, one of our consultants as well. And Jim, we have a really popular topic right now, which every single firm is talking about, is how to hold on to top talent. I think the one thing that is keeping partners up at night, probably among a couple other things, but the main thing we're hearing is, what if I lose these 1, 2, 3 kind of key people? So, Jim, as we know, people are firm's greatest asset. Why is it so important for leaders to really proactively think about how to hold on to them?
Well, I think the first thing is, for any organization, ours included at Boomer Consulting, I mean, what are we without our team and our people? And any organization is going to have trouble holding on to their team, but specifically top talent, if they don't provide an amazing employee experience. And actually IBM did some research in this area, and that research shows that organizations that lead in terms of the employee experience report nearly 3 times the return on assets and double the return on sales compared to those that don't have a positive employee experience. So the research shows it has a big impact. And the other part of it is, especially with your best people, when you lose them, you're diminishing your competitive advantage, but you're also going to incur significant cost to recruit, to hire, and to train the replacements, if you're able to find the replacements. And in this labor market, that's a big if these days that we're hearing. So I hear a lot from leaders that they feel like they're giving, but we're in a market where you especially with your best and brightest talent, you need to be making sure that they're happy and having an amazing experience. And it's more, the reason for them to wake up and come to work and be engaged and energized is way more than just a competition among the salaries. So very important, and something as leaders we all need to be laser focused on in terms of that employee experience.
Yeah, and it's really hard to gain momentum as an organization when you're spending a bulk of your resources to go out, find new client or find new talent, going through the interviewing process, training them up, getting a lot of team members involved to train them up. And so I think a lot of firm leaders are feeling that pain that you're highlighting, because it really does take so much energy away from other things. And so retention is huge. So Jim, we could read article after article, watch presentation after presentation out there around, hey, here are strategies you can employ to be able to hold on to your top talent. From everything you've been exposed to, from the sessions you've given, from the firms you've worked with, what are some of the key ways that you've seen work within organizations?
Well, I'll offer a few ways, but I'm going to sum them all up into investing in those individuals that you have identified as your top talent and a critical piece of your team, and that competitive advantage that I mentioned earlier. So the first one I would say is, be okay with not being cookie cutter and treating everyone the same. Fair is not the same as equal, but I think we sometimes fall into, I have to do the same thing with everybody on the team. And what that leads us to often is we end up spending and investing the most amount of effort and time into employees who you would not categorize as your top talent. And that is at the expense of the ones that are mission critical to hang on to. So that would be the first thing. And so what are some things that you can do if you get past that hurdle of treating everyone the same? I think you can put them on engagements and projects that are exciting and engaging, and make sure that they're continually challenged, and that they get excited about going and working on these things. I think there's opportunity to provide them with additional training and development opportunities. Um, that may be encourage them to participate in networking groups or peer groups like our circles, but that's an investment that shows, hey, I see a lot of potential in you. Let's get you involved in something that's going to accelerate your progress. I think we're in an environment where we need to offer flexibility to really remain competitive in the labor market. Now, that's not wild, wild west. Anybody can do anything at any time. You have to have that flexibility with some guardrails and policies, and like, people want expectations of how this is going to look when you have a flexible work environment. But offering that to your top talent is another one. And then finally, hold them accountable. If they're in that category of top talent, I guarantee you they want to be held accountable, and they're going to appreciate that, because they're constantly trying to figure out how they can improve themselves and grow, and what is that next stage. And that only comes from real conversations and people truly holding each other accountable as well.
Yeah, I mean, top talent doesn't want to work where being mediocre is acceptable, right? Because
Mhm.
they see it, and so that's a really good point. So providing that flexibility, um, you know, giving them training opportunities or opportunities, whether that's inside the firm or outside the firm, to learn and network, putting them on interesting engagements, things of that sort. Firms that have this dialed in, where they have, to kind of use your word, truly put together a plan to invest in their people. Um, have you seen this actually work in firms? What kind of success stories or positive stories have you heard from firms that have made this a focus, put the resources toward it, and then on the other side of that, been able to see the benefits?
Well, I think we're starting to see more and more real world examples. We're seeing firms invest the resources and the focus to go through employee experience projects, which will tie in which will focus on their top talent. And that's because what's prompting that is the war for talent that we're in right now. And so, again, as I said before, if you don't hold on to your best people, you're going to lose your competitive advantage, for both retention and attraction. And for so long, we spent most of our focus talking about the client experience and external facing. Probably, if we're honest, probably not as much focus as we should have. But when we thought about experience, we went external first. And the reality is, we have to get our own ducks in a row in our own organization and make sure we're providing an amazing employee experience internally. That will lead to happy employees who then do great work, are engaged in that work, and that obviously correlates to what we project externally to our clients and has a direct impact on the client experience. So we end up with happier clients, and clients who want to work with us year after year, and probably clients that want to work with us in more and more ways and trust us and are looking for additional help. So certainly, putting focus into this is something that we're seeing more and more firms doing, and we're seeing the beginning stages of the positive impacts here. Now, obviously, outside of the accounting profession, there's been firms focused on CX and EX for a long time. And so for IBM to have the research that they do, they had to study somebody. And there are a lot of firms who are doing this right and doing it well, or a lot of organizations, probably more so out of public accounting than what we're seeing right now. But it is, as we go to our circle meetings, we hear firms talking about the employee experience projects that they're embarking on. And then they're doing that jointly, so it's integrated with the CX or client experience project as well.
Yeah. And it's so interesting to hear the research and hear the conversations around the employee experience. And we can approach it from a firm perspective, which we are, and that's the point of this episode is approaching it from a firm perspective. But what's also true is our profession as a whole is asking themselves, what is it like? What is the experience of being a CPA, or what is the experience of working within the accounting profession? And people that are interested in this profession are looking for the avenues that will create the best experience for them. And so everything you're saying is ringing true. So let's say some of our listeners here are ready to kind of start to invest in that employee experience. And I say, you know what, I've heard presentations on this. Maybe I've talked to other firms about it as well. Now I hear this podcast episode, and we really need to start to get our arms around kind of some sort of strategy that really intentionally holds on to the top talent. What's your advice for them?
I'd say don't wait. Start embarking on an employee experience project today, so that you can define where you are today, identify areas where you can improve, and then set strategies to move your organization forward towards an amazing experience for your entire team. Now, this really should be a multifaceted team that you put together. It should be different functions, different departments, different levels within your firm, so you're hearing different perspectives and you take a holistic look at what the employee experience looks like from the very beginning. When you are out and recruiting, they may, that's where employee experience starts and it ends with exit interview. And you have to really analyze everything in between there. And you have to be honest with where you are today. I'm sure if you've listened to the Boomer Briefing episodes, you probably heard many of our team say that all progress starts with the truth, and a commitment to continuous improvement. So my advice is your next step should be commit to having a team really dissect where you are today and set a strategy for how you can improve into the future.
Excellent advice, Jim. And you said what I thought you were going to say too around continuous improvement. So employee experience is not a destination, right? It's all about the process, the framework you have, the mindset around it. But getting in motion now is essential advice. Well, Jim, that is all the time we have for this episode of the podcast. So thank you for being on again. For our listeners, we release new episodes every Tuesday morning. We like to rotate topics, between leadership, talent, technology, process, and growth. So we like to keep the variety in the topics being discussed, but the common theme is that they are all critical to your firm's success. So if you haven't already, please go ahead and subscribe, and please stay tuned for the next episode. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you, John.